Hi, welcome to Last Row Tickets. Pop culture takes from the weird seats, a Gadfly City production. My name's Billy O'Brien. This is Elizabeth Yandel, and we're here to give you a show. Today we're talking about "It's All Gonna Break," a documentary about you know what it's about, Elizabeth. Take it from here. This is one
Broken
of your
Social
favorite
Circle.
bands, right?
Huh?
Broken social scene.
Yeah.
And when we watch the documentary, what's your first thought, Elizabeth, as you see it?
It looked like a really good time. I mean, it looked like a broken social scene from the very beginning, basically. Um, which was the most interesting thing I think about this band is that it's like not really a band, you know. It's not a traditional in the traditional sense, you know. And I think
Yeah,
that was sort of
definitely.
like its power, but also made it sort of chaotic. But it just seemed like a big party, you know.
Like a traveling circus, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like traveling Wilburys meets Death Cab for Cutie vibe, right?
Sure.
I like the scene where they were going around looking for a trumpet player, I think, and they found someone on the street. Was it a trumpet? Am
Yeah,
I
I think
wrong?
you're right. Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember. Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
had to describe, I mean, like, so they're this kind of, band on the run, right? But if you had to describe it, their sound, their style, who would you compare it to?
Hmm. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's definitely indie rock, I guess, but that's such a vague term. I don't even really know what that means. It's pretty sleepy, like, and dreamy, sort of. I'm not sure who I would compare it to. I mean, I think especially for the scene in Toronto at that time, it was really unique. And I think that's a big part of like what really launched them, you know? They definitely had a
Yeah.
very unique sound and still were able to, like, pull in all these different musicians who had, you know, other projects that they were doing. And I feel like a part of that is because they didn't have, like, a set goal that they were trying to sound like. There was just, like, whatever everybody brings to it, you know? Like, obviously, that the main guy was the main guy, but, you know, I think they did a great job of,
Yeah.
like, sort of keeping things open enough for everybody to actually contribute to the sound, and that's what made it so
Yeah,
unique.
it's seems like one extended jam, right? And the jam banders came in and out over the years. It's one thing that really stuck out to me was not just the open door policy where people could come in and out. I remember the one bandmate talking about how he was going to show up for 3 or 4 shows on a tour, but it's very like meeting up with someone in a town, right? Versus versus like a set structure for a band. And it was interesting to me how they everyone it seemed like was there for the show. There was no, individual agendas. This is not
Mhm.
people that have, side projects that they're spending half the time talking about while they're
Mhm.
promoting another
Yeah,
band,
right.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they seem to not really be promoting themselves at all, which I appreciate, you know? Again, like, there was just kind of space for it to sort of, like, come to life on its own. And I was talking so my husband, Sebastian, grew up in Toronto mostly, and, he was playing music in Toronto at the same time that this was all happening. And so he actually went to the same high school as this main guy, Kevin, what's his last name? Can't think of it now, of course. But yeah, he was saying that, you know, it started even like way back then. They were always just all playing together. Sebastian wasn't really like he didn't really do the indie rock thing, but um like Feist, you know, and all of those people that were
Yeah.
involved have been playing together since they were kids and they all came up together and it's just kind of like what they did. And you can feel
Yeah.
that, you know, it's like you're just kind of hanging
Definitely.
out with your family playing music. It didn't feel
Yeah.
like it had yeah, like they were ambitious, but not towards a specific not in like your typical way, you know?
Yeah. They
Yeah.
didn't have the traditional band goals in mind, right? This is why we don't see the fighting like the Stillwater members in Almost Famous, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And,
So much ego.
touching off of your point about, this is just people jamming, it's probably why it seemed like almost every other shot was them playing in a house
Yeah.
right? It's,
Mhm.
it's like a house band show, right? And good lord, there were so many VHS tapes. It really brought us back, right? It was.
Yeah.
What was the last time you saw the date and time at the bottom of a video,
Yeah, I
right?
know, right?
It's
Crazy.
like watching. It's
Crazy
very
how much
much a blast from the
changed.
past.
It's not even that many years ago really though, which is wild. But yeah,
No, and
something
it's
that,
fuzzy, very fuzzy.
fuzzy, the footage?
All the videos, I
Yeah.
mean, it's definitely not HD. The whole thing is shot like a Steven Soderbergh film, right?
Yeah.
Turn of the
I know, but
century.
HD is so weird because I remember when it first came out or whatever, and I thought it looked so bizarre. I was like, "It looks like I'm watching a video game. I don't like looking at this." And then you just
Yeah, I
everyone just
definitely.
got used to it and just became the norm.
Yeah, yeah, and,
Yeah.
it makes this film definitely contrast with things we've seen. It's more like,
Mhm.
looking at some of your hazy memories, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it felt had a very nice, like, home video vibe to it, which I liked
Yeah.
because the documentarian, um, was just one of the buddies basically, right? And he wanted to start filming them, but he was already kind of hanging around with them anyway,
And
which
this
is
was shot over a long time, right? Forgive me,
seems like
but, I
yeah, a
mean, it
year.
seemed like this is over several years, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, shot over several years, and then at some point when they played that first big concert and it was sort of like everybody was like, "Oh, this is a thing that's gonna happen, like, maybe we are going somewhere," or whatever, he decided he wanted to make a film about it, and so it was cool to, like, hear them kind of referencing the film all throughout the footage, but nobody ever really knew where it was going. I mean, it seemed like the documentarian I can't think of his name either now, I can't ever remember anybody's.
Steve? I think it's Steven, I wanna
Yeah,
say.
yeah, that sounds
I
right.
remember we see his kid at the beginning, but,
It's super
you know,
cute. Um, but I think he had a very much had a vision, um, but yeah, just
the
he was
vision.
always, like, sneaky filming people, so he got all kinds of footage nobody else would ever be able to get, which is cool.
Yeah, and it's crazy. I mean, he was behind the scenes at Lala, and I feel like if there's any band that reeks of early Lala, when it was still very punk before all the very young people from the suburbs started converging on the event every year.
Mhm.
It was cool to see them rock out. Would have been cool to see them rock out more before the Red Hot Chili Peppers kicked them off stage,
Yeah.
but you know, and this
Yeah.
all led up to their first album, right?
What did?
This movie led up to their first album, right?
What do you mean it led up
Feel
to it?
Good Lost. I
Yeah.
thought the whole documentary was shot, in the run up to that, correct?
I think most of it, but it seems like they got footage from after that first one was out and they were recording the second, if I remember right, but
Yeah,
maybe I
Feel
misunderstood.
Good Now, right?
Yeah, which is like it's such a spacey album and, like but it has such a fresh energy to it, you know? It actually isn't the kind of stuff I normally would even like that much, I don't think,
It's
you know?
sounds different from their later stuff, and I feel like
Yeah,
maybe you couldn't
absolutely.
expect that from like the revolving door of the band, but
Yeah.
it's definitely trippy. And
Mhm.
I love that album because it has what Jimmy Page of Zeppelin used to call light and shade, right? It's not like early Beatles albums where it's the same thing over and over again, verse, chorus, etc. The
Yeah.
whole thing is like a roller coaster. It takes you up
Mhm.
and down, right? There's like songs that emphasize the first song is a violin based thing, right? Then it's like guitar and drums,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah,
all
it
kind of
feels almost
melodic.
like symphonic in a kinda way, like, has very much has, like, a symphony feel to it, which is cool, and I think the producer guy has a lot to do with that, whose name of course I don't remember either, but
And they
they,
shot it in their kitchen, right? I mean, it was
yeah,
like
basically, he
this is
just,
not
like
Abbey Road.
huh?
This isn't Abbey Road, right? This is
No,
the
it was
opposite
definitely
of
not,
that.
yeah. Yeah, but I mean, that's something too that, I ended up thinking about a lot after watching this, or and while I was watching this was just, like, the way that a band like this would be able to hit, basically, like, the way they'd be able to break through. I think there were these laws that were in place in Canada at the time, and I think they're still in place, I'm not sure if they've changed, but they called them the CanCon laws, Canadian content laws. So like 35% of all commercial radio stations, all of everything played on commercial radio stations had to be made by Canadians. Because before that, they were having issues with just like only American music was being played on the radio. So like any Canadian artists were like, basically, I have to leave Canada if I want to get played, you know. So they made these laws, they put these laws in place to sort of like help create more of an art and culture environment. And the thing is, like, bands like this or like Peaches, who they mentioned in the
Yeah.
documentary, like would not have gotten radio play probably if they didn't have those laws in place. So it's cool to think about that. Like there was sort of this like chaotic, like swirling scene, you know, and they were able to
Yeah.
capture that
Absolutely.
energy in the recordings. But
Yeah.
there's a structure, like a policy structure in place that allowed for that to thrive, you know, which is pretty
Absolutely.
cool.
It's
Yeah.
protectionist music industry kind of, right? That's cool. And I love that all this it was exploding when the internet was exploding, when
Mhm.
independent platforms were exploding.
Mhm.
You have Napster emerging, you
Right.
have Pitchfork emerging, and it kind of all bred this sort of hunger and appetite and audience for independent music. And for
Totally.
concerts like Pitchfork and others around the country and across Canada that allowed for them to sort of come on the scene, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and, like, the, agent who they ended up working with, or manager, I guess, you know, they talked about how he was, like, an industry guy, but he wasn't afraid of the internet like most people in the industry
Yep.
were, and that's a big part of, I think, what helped them rise to the top and, like, get heard and s break through because, you know, I mean, that
Yeah,
really
they're
was, I mean, at
new.
this point, we all use the internet, but
Yeah.
at that point, it was, like, new, people didn't know how to use it, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like they had to go over the wall a different way, right?
Mm.
Because it was nostalgic to see how they ran through the 90s, right? All of these Blockbuster and
Yeah.
the accoutrement of the basic 90s, right? And
Yeah.
I part of me when I'm watching that, it does kind of remind you how different they sound, right? This is like LCD
Yeah.
sound system
Mhm.
mixed with like explosions in the sky with a brass band,
Yeah,
right?
sure, yeah, yeah,
Right? If
uh-huh,
someone told you that, especially back then, you might wonder how they're gonna be successful,
yeah,
right?
totally, yeah,
Anyone that
yeah,
likes indie
that's
music now has heard them.
what'd you say?
I feel
Any
like anyone now, any indie fan,
yeah,
that has heard of them, stumbled across them, listened to them,
yeah,
right?
yeah, totally, I mean, I came to them really late, actually, like, after they had sort of stopped being as big. I came to them by way of Feist, who I got into first, and
Okay.
then somebody was like, "Oh, she started in Broken Social Scene," and so I checked 'em out. Um, but yeah, I mean, they've obviously had a major influence on the indie music scene, everything that came after it, you know? Um,
Absolutely.
but yeah, totally, like, they don't have like, especially that first album, it's not like songs. I mean, they're songs, but they're not songs in the way that we think about them, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. You have sort of like very throughout the whole album, you have a lot of bohemian trance music, like bohemian house music, right? But there's songs in the middle that remind me of When the Levee Breaks,
Sure.
by on Zeppelin 4. There's songs at the end that remind me of Yesayer,
Hmm,
and
cool.
they're more of like dashes. I feel like they create their own style and tone and
Yeah,
sound by
yeah,
mixing all these artists and all these influences. And I really like that they go into the influences that inspired them, right? So often, some of our favorite bands and albums, they kind of treat it like a black box. And
yeah.
a lot of us want to know where our favorite tunes come from. And this is definitely a good way to hear about that. And you were talking about the female singer.
Mhm.
It's crazy to see a band operate so intergenerationally, right?
Yeah.
And pretty bizarre, right? You've been in a band, right? It's like, how does that work, right?
I've been in lots of bands. I mean, I've been in bands where there's older people and younger people, but usually it's like this awkward kind of divide, has been my experience. But in their situation, it seems like it was more that they were able to kind of, like, reap the benefits of both types of players, like, these new people coming up who are,
Yeah.
like, super hungry and just wanted to do anything. And then these
Yeah.
more seasoned players who kind of had been around and knew what the industry was like and realized actually how special this was because it's just not the kind of thing that you find often. Like,
No.
basically, they had created or they, stumbled upon or whatever, a scene, and it's like a yeah, that's, like, what every artist wants to have at some point in their life.
Yeah,
And you can
absolutely.
feel it's
And
like this magic thing that just starts bubbling up, and I think having the older players and the younger players really fed that.
yeah, and I think that them kind of waiting to go public to the show scene might have helped them because
Yeah,
it definitely appears that they had a lot of time to get their act right. And,
totally.
when a lot of the movie is just showing them, getting, cutting their teeth in their houses, their friends' houses, whatever, um, they carried that house show experience into the live arena in a
Mhm,
way that makes the whole all their stuff sound more authentic from the album to the live shows. Anyone that's been to their live shows
mhm.
knows how cool they are, knows how they come away feeling a lot more jazzed than you went there. It's not like going to see a band that is canned, that has
Yeah,
a tight uh set list and there's no deviation, there's no improvisation. This was
mhm,
always different. And it's cool to see how they started,
mhm,
right?
totally.
And that they kept it going and like there's no fights. This isn't like, like Stillwater and Almost Famous or the end of the Beatles, right? There's at the end, they're still everyone's having a good time. They're not fighting. No one's complaining they're not getting enough solo time. No one's complaining they're not getting enough, front page covers or credit on the album. They're all just kind of laughing backstage and hanging out like friends. And that definitely comes through in the
Mhm.
music, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I think you hit on something important, which is that, like, their live shows were a real experience for people. Like, they really brought the audience into
Absolutely.
the show, and, like, it wasn't just like you're standing there watching somebody on stage. They were, like,
Yeah.
really did a great job engaging with the audience, but also I think just creating that, like, we're at a house party together vibe
Yeah.
on stage. And that's really intoxicating to go to a show like that, so I think that really, really helped them a lot.
It's intoxicating. And how often do you see brass on stage anymore? At least brass that's, not coming from a keyboard, right?
Yeah, actual
I think there's
brass.
something.
Especially
Yeah.
in that kind of music, it's not common.
Yeah, absolutely. For a guy that plays a brass instrument,
What
I'm
do you
not gonna
play?
tell you which.
Oh, I didn't know you
I'll
played.
give okay, I'll get pop quiz. I'll give you 3, French horn, trumpet, trombone.
You want me to guess which one you play?
Yeah, it's one of those 3.
French horn, trumpet, and trombone? Is that what you
Yeah.
said?
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess French horn.
No, except my grandfather did play that, but I play the tenor trombone.
Oh,
So,
cool. Nice.
very rare to
Love
see
the trombone.
any trombonist featured in any band right now, except if you watch TCM.
Mhm.
But watching this movie is definitely an experience in terms of, like, just the visuals. It's
Yeah,
pretty groovy,
so, like,
just
what did you think about the craft of the documentary itself?
I thought it was a work of art. If you've ever seen Loving Vincent or Journey to Infinity, it's gotta be recommended just for the visuals alone. There's sort of
Mhm.
like kaleidoscope, scenes that transition in and out. Again, the Soderbergh reference is spot on. It's got these shots lacing scenes and interweaving them that are like, faded memories. There's a lot of, cuts to concert posters. It's like watching a dream of all your memories from the '90s strung together, like, on a VHS tape,
Yeah,
right?
it
What'd
is
you think
very
about it just
dreamy,
visually?
for sure, yeah. And that works really well with the music, right? Which is like this sort of like dreamy, collagey kind of thing. I thought they
Like,
did a
kind of
great job.
like
I'm
hipster
actually
Odessa,
Huh?
hipster Odessa, right?
Yeah. I,
What are you doing?
I was gonna say I'm not actually a big documentary person. I don't I mean, I've watched a lot of great documentaries and there's tons of them out there. But I often the thing I struggle with documentaries is that they often don't have a great, like, story arc, you know?
Yeah.
They kind
Yeah.
of compile a bunch of footage or interviews or whatever, and you're like, "Okay, so, like, what is the point? Like, what are you s" you know?
Yeah.
What's what,
Absolutely.
basically. But I thought they did a good job with this, which, like, they had some really solid themes, which are just clearly emerge from the footage and the experience itself, which is that friendship really was, like, the through line for all of
Yeah.
this. And it's the
Yeah. They
reason that they didn't end up hating each other in the end is because they really genuinely, I think, were friends first, you know what I mean? Before any
absolutely. It's very
ambitions or
organic,
anything.
right? Very organically shows how they came together, how they
Yeah,
launched, how they kept it going.
yeah,
And that's difficult for when you bring on other people, right? As we said before, when you bring on other band members, normally they have agendas, they have
mhm,
needs, they have egos, and there was an ethos that ran through this band. And if you really like Broken Social Scene, it's really cool to see how the core members brought it all together, uh,
mhm.
instilled an ethos through it all, and kept it going. You know,
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when music or money gets involved, I think it's just hard for people to not start wanting something specific, you know?
absolutely. And towards the end, when they go back to Steve, let's call him Steve, the guy making the documentary.
Yeah, his
You know,
name's
it's
Steve, we should look it up.
it's very it hits you over. Yeah, we should figure out who the guy
I
is,
should've
right?
I'm terrible at names, and I should have written them all down, but
Well, he's not part of the band, it's a broken social scene, so maybe
yeah,
it's good that we don't remember everyone,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's like Steve's putting it together, and you really get a sense that you hit the nail on the head. It's a documentary, but this is constructed to tell the story of how they blew up, right? And they're not just what 4 or 5 people playing in a basement in Toronto, and they go from there to being on stage, one of the grandest stages ever in Lollapalooza, downtown Chicago,
Playing The
and
Late Night Show. Mhm.
the long arc, right?
Yeah. It was cool to it was yeah, the footage I thought was really good, and the footage I'm sure he has tons of footage. So I thought he did a really great job of selecting footage that was, like, fun to watch and, like, unique and specific to these specific people at this time. But it
Absolutely.
also told a story, like, it gave us a clear arc, which I really appreciate as a story as a writer, like, I need an arc. I wanna see things
Yeah.
change over the course of the story. Um,
Yeah, I mean, too often in music documentaries, you just get extended shots of them playing live, right? And it's
yeah,
it's
which is
typically bad
cool,
quality.
but, like, why not just watch the concert then? I don't.
Yeah, yeah, or go to a concert, right? It's
Yeah,
like, if you're gonna put together a movie, there should be some semblance of why you made a documentary in the first place, and
yeah,
the mission of the story definitely comes through, and I think that for anyone that's ever been to a sweaty, sticky bar hearing someone, yell from the top of their lungs and the bottom of their heart, you'll appreciate this. Um, it's a really cool documentary. Okay, so
yeah.
how would you rate it? How would you describe it? What are your thoughts? Overall, how would you rate it?
What's our rating scale?
Ah, 1 to 5.
1 to
Okay,
5.
1 to 5. Let's do that. Is it five? Zero, zero, one being the worst, five being the best. How do you stack this one up?
I would give it a 4.5. I think they did a really good job. Um,
Yes.
yeah, I think they did a really good job. It was, like, really heartfelt. The story was solid. The footage was fucking excellent. They worked in interviews, but they didn't, like, overly work in interviews. I get kind
Yeah.
of, like,
Yeah.
tired of just, like, "And now we're sitting here watching this person talk about how he feels," over and over and
Yeah.
over. But they did a good job. He did a
Yeah.
good job of,
Yeah.
like, weaving it all together.
A lot of times, yeah, it does. Some of these documentaries, they're sort of like farewell tours meets infomercial, right? It's like, oh, here's why this hit, got made. Here's why we're famous or whatnot. This is definitely a story of kind of like a prequel to a band that a lot of people know. And I think that one thing we didn't really talk about that much is how, this band, a lot of people that don't know a lot about them, they just say, "Oh, this is an indie band, right? It's gonna sound like this or that," And I think the way they play, although it sometimes people just call it indie, it's not really that. Especially we talked about their first album.
Yeah.
No one sings until the fourth song, I
I
think,
know.
and
I know. It's not
you
it's
know,
probably if you haven't heard them, they don't sound like you think they're gonna sound, for sure.
no, and there's not a lot of singing in general, and all the singing sounds like it's through a distortion pedal.
Mhm. Yeah, it's all
It,
pretty
it's
distorted.
a it's a documentary that I think all people love. If you like classic rock, if you like the 80s, if you like, progressive music now, if you like folk, bluegrass, whatever.
Mhm.
Um, I think people will dig it because it looks great. It's
Yes.
pretty trippy. It
Mhm.
sounds good, and it's a cool
Yeah.
story about a group of people that came together as friends to kick ass,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and it's like one of the rare stories about a band where it doesn't, like, end in disaster. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, you
yeah,
basically
or
never
lawsuit.
hear that
Yeah,
story. And also something I really appreciated about it is that there's no stupid sound effects, because that fucking drives me crazy about documentaries. It's just, like, unnecessary, stupid sound effects to, like,
yeah.
increase tension or whatever. Basically, all the sound
Just
is people
just
talking
like
and then
us.
their music. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, you know, to wrap it up, I would probably give it 5 stars because
Nice.
I was tremendously shocked. I had listened to them a little bit, but never to the extent that I was exposed here. I think everyone should check it out. I think it's a
Mm,
cool movie about a
mhm.
kick-ass band, and I'll give it 5 stars. Watch it yourself. Tell us what you think.
Yeah, we
In
wanna
the
hear it.
meantime, we want to hear it online, in person. Follow us on YouTube, Spotify, all those things at Gadfly City. Fly over there right now like the good flies you are. Come back next time. This is Last
Alright.